Welcome to Texas River Runners. It's way too hot in Texas to be camping right now. But we can get our stuff together. Let's go! Most of the stuff that you'll be taking on your canoe trip can be divided up into a couple different categories. The things you need for eating and the things you need for sleeping. First, let's talk about the things you want to bring for cooking your food. The most essential thing you need when you're camping on the side of the river for cooking your food is some sort of stove. There are various types of stoves. There's butane, there's propane, there's even little twig burning stoves, and they all have their advantages and disadvantages. What I like to bring is a butane stove like this one. Here's my little stove. It uses a butane canister like this. Now, the reason I like this kind is for a couple different reasons. Butane and propane. You can see a propane canister is quite a bit bigger than a butane canister. This is about the size of a spray paint can. This is a little bigger. And with the butane stove, you can carry your can inside the stove, whereas a propane stove, you're gonna have to connect it externally, and if you have to carry a couple of bottles, that's 2 bottles that's taking up a lot of extra room. The other thing about propane stoves, a lot of times, they make some that the burner sits on top, and you get this very tall little stove that may not be very stable. When you're on the side of the river, you don't know what kind of stability you might have. So this thing sits very low profile, and it's a little more stable. And also, they typically come in a carrying case like this, where you can set it up to block the wind if it's a windy day. So that's why I like this kind of butane stove for cooking on. So aside from your stove, there's a few other things that I found to be really useful for cooking various meals on the river. One is this nifty little charcoal grill. Folds up, very compact, and it's been great for cooking hamburgers, steaks. I love to eat good food on the side of the river, and I've really enjoyed using this little grill. The only bad thing is you got to carry your charcoal, and I will fill up like a 1-gallon Ziploc bag of charcoal, but that takes up more room than the actual grill does. But other than that, it's a pretty nifty little grill. This is brand new. My family gave me for Father's Day. It's just an over the coals little grill, and it folds up very compact, and is really neat. I haven't tried it yet. I'm looking forward to trying it, but you just put it over a bed of coals and you can cook. It comes with a little handy grill scraper. That's a nifty little grill there. The last one I want to show you, this is a reflector oven, and this thing is awesome. I really like this. We made apple pie on the side of the river. My wife loves to can, and she does an awesome job at it, making all this good food. She canned apple pie filling. So we grabbed a jar of it, took a couple of those pre-made pie crust, jumped the apple pie filling in, put the other one on top, stuck it in this thing, set it next to a fire, and cooked homemade apple pie on the side of the river. It was so good. Now, it doesn't come with the pan, but you can get a 9-inch pan, and this handy little thing here for taking out, because it will get hot. But it works great. You just set it up by the fire, and it uses the infrared light from the fire to bake your food. That's a nifty little thing there. So that's just a few things that I like to take, maybe not all of them, 1 or 2 of them, and gives me other options for cooking on the side of the river. So this is the charcoal grill. This is the over the coals grill, and this is the reflector oven. You see they all fold up nice and compact and easy to carry. Now, of course, I'm not going to grill all my food, so you need a few other things for cooking on the side of the river. And I have a few things here. One, I have my solo stove pot. This is a great pot that came with a solo stove, a twig burning stove. whether I'm bringing that stove or not, I always bring this pot because it's such a good pot, stainless steel, and has a great lid on it for cooking all sorts of things, soups or jambalaya or anything like that. Now I also take a frying pan, and my general rule of thumb is to bring compact, lightweight stuff. I throw my rule of thumb out the window on my frying pan because I love a good cast iron skillet. It just cooks up your bacon and eggs so good, and it's great for cooking anything. If I was backpacking or something, I probably wouldn't take it because it's so heavy, but in the canoe, it's not that big a deal to take a good cast iron skillet, and I love my cast iron skillet. And lastly is my coffee pot for boiling water and whatever, because there's nothing better than a hot cup of coffee on a cool morning beside the river. That was a good cup of coffee. Now, and the great thing about a coffee pot like this is I also use it to store stuff. I've got a hot pad here that one of my little girls made me, some lighter fluid, a knife, some dishwashing soap, and a scrub sponge. So I keep that stored in there when I'm traveling, and then I got a great pot for boiling water and whatever else you need. A couple other things: you need a good spatula, and you need plates, cups, bowls, things like that. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the cooking accessories that I take along on a canoe trip. One thing that can be a challenge when you're on the side of the river is table space, places to put things down. And you can use your ice chest or your camp box to put things on to use as a table, but then if you have to get something back out, you're having to move everything and open it up. So it's nice to have a table that you can just set up and leave for the whole time wherever you're camping, and use for placing things, for cooking, for eating. And here's a few different tables that I've used, and you can see how they fold up here. It's a little Coleman type table. This is a tiny little table, and then another table that goes in this bag here. These three, I'll put them together and show you what they look like. But these are the types of tables I've used. They come in very handy when you need table space on the side of the river. So you can see here I have my 3 different tables set up. This is that Coleman Camp Kitchen. This thing is fantastic. It's got these little hooks for hanging cups and things on it. It's got a pole there for you can hang a lantern on. I actually will put my roll of paper towels just on that pole, and that works great. These are for setting your camp stove, and then there's a little net under there for just throwing different things. That thing is really handy, gives you a lot of table space and a lot of neat features for keeping your stuff clean and out of the sand. This is another little table I got. It's a little more compact. It comes in a bag. Easy, really quick fold up and take down. It doesn't have all the fancy features other than the net underneath it. The reason I got that one as opposed to this one when you fold it up, a little bit bulky. It also has some sharp edges on it. And when I'm taking my canoe that's a little more fragile, and the canoe I don't like to go over rocks on, that one always has me a little nervous that it's gonna punch a hole in the side of the canoe or something. So I ended up getting this one, which goes in a bag, and I'm not so worried about it. But it gives you a lot of table space. And then lastly, this little bitty table. Great little table. I've taken this on every canoe trip I've been on. It's small, but it's nice. If you're sitting in your camp chair, you can sit, you can cook on it, you can eat on it. It's just a neat little table. And if you're trying to go lightweight and you don't want to take a big table, I always take this one because it gives you that extra bit of table space. So now we're going to talk about the sleeping side of things. What do you need for a good night's sleep when you're camping on the side of the river? And people often ask me what I like better. Do I like tent camping or do I like hammock camping? Well, I like both, and they each have different benefits and trade-offs. I've used tents forever, and I have 3 different tents. I have a 2-man Eureka. I've got this Alps Mountaineering 4-man tent, and then I've got a big 8-man Alps Mountaineering tent, and I've used them all. It just depends on how many people I'm taking. And You know, my preference, if I had to go either way, I actually like the tent. If I'm camping in a tent, I'll take a sleeping bag, and these Climate Static V bags like this roll up like that, and then they blow up like this, and they're pretty nice and they're pretty comfortable. I enjoy the camping in the tent experience. Now, hammock camping can be nice too. I would say the trade-off though, if you've got a lot of people, say I'm taking 3 of my children and I need the 4-man tent. Well, it's a lot less work to just set up one 4-man tent than it is to set up 4 hammocks with their rain flies. But hammocks can be nice. If you've got plenty of trees, you can set up a hammock between 2 trees. If you don't have trees, then you're gonna need a tent, obviously. My children actually love the hammocks, and if it's a hot or warm night, the hammock is nice. If you have a little breeze blowing, it keeps you cool. On the other hand, if it's a cold night, you can get really cold in a hammock, and you might need some sort of fleece liner or something to keep you warm. You typically, at least down here in Texas, you're gonna want a rain fly with the hammock. You get a lot of dew at night down here, and if you don't have that rain fly, you will wake up soaking wet in the morning. So here's a hammock. This one has the built-in mosquito net. If it's a regular hammock without the net, you'll need the mosquito net as well. Rain fly, and then straps. The nice thing when I would definitely use a hammock is if it's wet and maybe you're having to camp up in the woods instead of on a dry sandbar. And then you don't really want to have a tent because you don't want to put your tent in the mud. So if it's muddy like that, then it's really nice to have a hammock where you can just crawl up in there and not have to worry about setting the things or sleeping in the mud. The other thing is a sleeping bag and how to carry a sleeping bag. Of course, you need a sleeping bag for everybody that's going, and to carry it, I always put it in some sort of dry bag or dry sack. This is just a cheap dry sack from Academy. It works pretty good. They make better quality ones, but the way it works, you just roll up the top and everything stays nice and dry. Now, I'll bring some pillows along with my sleeping bag. My daughter made this for me. It's got my daddy is camping pillow, and my jungle pillow, and let's see, well, here's a Houston Astros pillow. So my daughter made all those for me, and those come in really handy when you're on the side of the river. On a cool night, you might throw in a little fleece blanket, and then my sleeping bag is rolled up in there. So those are a few things that you might consider when you're camping out, and you just have to evaluate what's going to be best for you, a tent or a hammock. A few other things that are very handy when you're camping and canoeing on the side of a river. One is a sponge. A big sponge like this is great for getting the water out of your canoe while you're canoeing, and it also helps to clean out any mud that you might track into it. So it's very handy to have. I just put it on the floorboard of the canoe right in front of me while I'm canoeing. It's also very handy to have something to cut your firewood. Right here is a little bow saw, and it folds up very nicely like this, and the blade is protected, so you don't have to worry about snagging it on anything. But it works like this. And now I've got this handy bow saw, and that works really good. I like that. A hatchet may come in handy as well. When I take big groups, especially with young children, I always tell them to not bring any kind of axes or hatchets, because you're a long ways away from any medical attention, and children and hatchets can be not too good. You don't want anybody chopping their toe off. But sometimes if it's just me, I'll take a hatchet. It can be really handy for chopping some wood. But the bow saw I really like. And lastly, a box like this for just incidental items. You know, maybe some sunblock, a torch, some Tylenol, your toothbrush, a little shovel. Here's a little shovel. These are really nice. You might need, and along with the shovel, some flushable wipes. These are really nice as opposed to toilet paper. You don't have to worry about it getting wet. But a little box like this, and you can put food in it as well. Any dry goods, canned goods, chips or stuff like that. Really handy to have in this box. Last few things to talk about here on how I pack for a canoe trip. It is very important that you take plenty of water. And so I've used a couple different things. I've used containers like this for water. I've used these coolers for water as well. These are nice because you can use it to wash your hands or anything like that. You have a little bit of running water with these. I've also used like the 2.5 gallon jugs that you just buy from the store and go. Whatever you do, the general rule of thumb is 1 gallon per person per day on a canoe trip. Now, I also will take frozen water bottles, or actually a frozen milk jug full of water, and put it in my cooler, and that helps keep things nice and cold. You don't have to even bring a cooler. You can survive without keeping things cold, but like I've said, I really like to eat good on the side of the river. And so I use this Tundra 65 Yeti. It fits perfectly inside the canoe, and I usually have it facing me so that I could open it up while I'm canoeing and get some things out. Now, all the stuff that I've showed you, I like to stick it in just one of these Sterilite boxes. This right here is a 30-inch Sterilite box. I like this kind because it has the locks on the lid, and this particular one has a gasket as well. So if you do flip all your stuff, this should float and it shouldn't get your stuff all full of water. So that's how I pack my stuff. One last thing that's very important. I have several daughters, and if I'm taking girls, there's one thing you kind of need to take if you're taking girls. It needs no explanation, but one of these with a little pop-up tent to go over it. All right, we've got all our stuff packed up. We're ready to load up the canoe. Let's go. Okay, I'm all loaded up and ready to hit the water. This here is an Old Town Penobscot 17.4, so it's 17 foot 4 inches. You can load the exact same way in a 16-foot canoe. I've done it in a Buffalo 16-footer, but you can see here everything I have. I have my camp chairs here in the back. I've got a dry sack. I've got my Yeti cooler, fit right here perfectly in front of me, so I have access to it. I've got my camp boxes. Got a couple more dry sacks, and then in the very front, I've got my water container. It's helpful if you've got a small child up in the front and you're much more heavily weighted in the back to put some weight up there, so that water container helps balance things out. Well, that's it. I'm ready to hit the water. How about y'all? Don't forget your paddles and life jackets, and I'll see you on the river. Thank you for watching Texas River Runners. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and tell your friends about us. If you have a question, leave a comment, or if you'd like to know more about canoeing any of Texas' great rivers.